Yo, what up guys, Magic IQ here, and today I'm finally bringing you guys the mobbing build for Freyna that you guys have all been asking for. We're using the exact same sockets as the bossing build. Now in the future, I heard in the developer notes, they did say they might possibly make it so that we can switch sockets based on the setting we're using, whether it's the first one, the second one, or the third one. Essentially be able to spec a slot for both mobbing, bossing, and group bossing, which ideally should have been how the game released with that system, but in my personal opinion, I'm pretty happy they're possibly going to bring it in the future. But if Ultimate Freyna comes before that, then we will have a fully min-max mobbing build for that. But for the guys that are using my bossing build, this does work pretty well. So we're going to spawn these enemies back in just so you guys can see what it ticks for. Now, as you guys know, this week is the best week to farm Freyna's reactors, and because of that, I do have a reactor for each specific enemy type. So in the laboratory settings here, you're going to see Legion of Darkness, Order of Truth, or Legion of Immortality. I'm using Legion of Darkness reactor right now, so we're going to spawn them back in, and you guys are going to see how much damage this does do in its current state. Now, obviously, if I were to min-max this, I'd probably add a little bit more cooldown to get our 4 to come back a little bit quicker, but I'm going to show you guys how we proc that in a second as well. So all we're going to do here is pop the 4 skill, shoot 1 bullet, and you guys are going to see the tick damage with Contagion and Room 0 Trauma. I honestly think her buff was pretty underwhelming, but right before it goes away, you guys are going to want to proc the 2 skill, and that's going to give you a more intense cooldown. So as you guys see, it's coming back a little bit faster than it normally would. I believe this cooldown is somewhere around like 20 to 25 seconds, which is still pretty quick. But me personally, I would want to spec into MP conversion and get this down to 10 seconds. I did have a build where it was around 10 seconds, but the thing is the damage was a little bit lower and the survivability was way lower. And I wanted to give you guys a decent amount of survivability. So let's go ahead and check out the build right now, and I'll show you guys how we get up to 44,000 defense with this build. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and move my face cam, and we're just going to get straight into it, man. First things first, for the weapons, we're using the Fallen Hope. Now this actually does matter, and the reason for that is we're using the most amount of ammo possible so we can spam that 4 skill if we get into a sticky situation in a defense. We also have fire rate up for the 4 skill as well if you guys want to spam those bullets out as quickly as possible. We also have rifling reinforcement, action reaction, and toxic enhancement for the damage for this gun, and defense master. I'm going to show you guys how this works in just a second, but this is insanely strong for our build and it helps out quite a lot. Okay, specifically because of the fact that this build is so squishy. As you guys see, 28,000 defense and 3,646 health. Now that's the most HP I could fit on here, considering when you guys take a look at our modules that we don't have any C sockets, okay? All we're gonna have is straight like damage and pretty much rutile and malachite sockets because of our bossing build, as you guys can see here. Make sure you guys go ahead and check out that build video if you guys haven't already. But anyways, getting straight into this, so everything dead right here is obviously an empty socket. I already know you guys are gonna ask me down below. I was just testing both builds 2 different ways, and this is the one that came out on top. It has a lot more damage, but obviously the skill takes a little bit longer to come back, but I'll show you guys in a second how quick the 1 skill actually does come back. So we're running Contagion. I tried to test it without it. I didn't really see a point in giving that up. I don't really notice the Room 0 Trauma buff that much. As you guys do see now, it does read at 7-meter radius. I can't increase that either, unfortunately. If you guys do want to run maximum range, the puddle can get pretty big if you guys have the sockets for that. So if you want to run it, go ahead. The range does get bigger on the puddle, but the trauma spread doesn't get any bigger. It seems to barely be 7 meters. It actually, I can't even notice it sometimes, especially with Contagion in its current state. I don't even notice the buff really, so unfortunately that's slightly underwhelming, but this build does get the job done with the exact same sockets as the bossing one. So getting straight into it though, the Spear and Shield right here for 51% defense and skill power on there. If this was a perfect world, I'd rather run the modifier for bigger ticks, but we don't have the space for that, and in order to get the most out of the build, this Spear and Shield right here, skill power does not scale with how much we upgrade it, so we were able to fit it on there and just get the 8% base regardless and get a little bit more defense for survivability as much as we could. I equipped this socket obviously last so I can max it out as much as I could while fitting everything else on. We have multi-talented here. When using dimension active skill cooldown negative 20.5%. that is how we're getting our 4 and our 1 back way faster than we normally would. We're going ahead and proccing that 2 skill, which is actually giving us increased defense as well, and it's pretty much up 24/7. So we're proccing defense mechanism to actually enhance our skill cooldown and give us a little bit more survivability. Focus on tech tech skill power modifier and skill cooldown. You guys can actually go regular tech specialist here if you want a little bit more damage and don't really care about the cooldown. Nimble fingers I think is a must on this build. You guys can risk it and go MP conversion here. That's honestly up to you. I would personally just stick with the nimble fingers, especially because you probably have to get rid of some of these defense upgrades. You'd probably have to run this at a 3 instead of a 6. So personally, I'd probably just stick with nimble fingers, but if you guys want to, you can run this at a 3 and put MP conversion on here. Now we also have focus on toxic for toxic skill power and skill cooldown, obviously another 6% there, so 12% skill cooldown coming from just these two alone, as well as the 25.6% here and the negative 20.5% here. We also are running Venom Sanctium for a little bit more skill power and critical hit resistance, and increased defense for 160% defense buff. We're also running time distribution here to get a little bit of HP on the build, as we don't have any C sockets. This gives us skill cooldown and max HP. If you guys were running with Luna, you could go ahead and get rid of this and Venom Sanctium and probably run like regular increased HP here. That'll give you a little bit more health and a little bit more survivability, and Luna should be able to make up for your skill cooldown as long as she's using her 4 skill. Now getting into the external components here, we're still using the Slayer set. Not much has changed here. Me personally, if you guys want to, you definitely are going to want to run max MP recovery in combat, MP recovery out of combat on here if you can get it to drop, MP recovery modifier and defense on this memory if you can get it to drop. And for the Slayer processor, you guys can run max shield and whatever resistance you want. You can also run shield recovery in combat to go ahead and give you a little bit more survivability as well. It's kind of up to you. And as mentioned before, this reactor, guys, is going to be toxic skill power boost with the tech skill power boost, as R1 and R3 are both tech skill power and R4 is as well. Everything on her is pretty much tech except for her 2 that we only use to proc skill cooldown, and we also have additional skill attack when attacking Legion of Darkness. You can also put skill effect range or skill cooldown here to make it even better for your skills to get better cooldown. I would recommend that as well, but me personally, I was trying to get as much damage out of it while balancing everything out equally, and I really enjoy this setup right here. I have a specific reactor for every single type of enemy. There's only 3 different factions, so it shouldn't take that long to farm, especially since you guys are able to farm it in Frozen Valley this week. Again, as mentioned at the beginning of the week in a update video for the weekly update. Every Tuesday, by the way, guys, I do post a weekly update. I highly recommend you guys farm this mission for the reactors, as it drops a bunch, as you'll also be able to farm polyatomic ionic particles for your energy activators. This is the best mission to farm the reactors for Freyna and double dip as well. So I highly recommend you guys come to Frozen Valley and Fortress and farm command relay for these reactors and resources. But taking a look at the stats here and how to increase them. So as I mentioned before, we do have 3600 health. Unfortunately, that's going to stick, but this 28k defense, as you guys are going to see here, we're just going to go ahead and proc Defense Master on this enemy by killing him and proc our 2 skill at the same time. So we take out the enemy right there, 39,000 defense, proc the 2 skill, and as you guys see right here, 44,000 defense. And this lasts quite a while. As you'll see here, it'll eventually fall off, but in 10 seconds, we will be able to reproc Defensive Master. So it's pretty consistent. You're honestly not spending much time at 28k defense, and if you're not proccing your 2 constantly, which you should, you will always be minimum at 32,000 as long as you stay on top of it. And then every time you kill an enemy with the skill or the gun, it doesn't even matter what you kill it with, you will proc Defense Master, which will get you up to 39 base and 44 with the 2 procs. So highly recommend you guys run that on your gun to go ahead and make up for some of the health in this build. If you guys obviously have enough health and defense because you have different sockets, you will be able to either run Toxic Conductor or Venom Injector. There's another thing I like to use called Sweeping Squad. It does increase your firearm ATK by 10.6% when defeating enemies. That's also including skill kills, so it only affects your firearm ATK, but it does help when running defense, so you can spray and pray on as many enemies as possible. Firing Fiesta is also a good shout on this gun as well. I hope you guys enjoyed today's Freyna mobbing build. I know you guys have been asking for this a lot recently, and I hope to see you guys again for the Python setup next video. So we have a Python build coming out next video. I will be posting that tomorrow. I appreciate you guys for tuning in. It's been Magic IQ, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I'm out. Peace.